Hi, this is my second subscriber suggested video. It's quite niche content and it's quite deep into MBTI, so there's not really much online about it. There's also not really many viewers who want to watch it, so if you don't mind, if you want to subscribe, then that would really let me know that this is something you're interested in watching and will encourage me to make more of these kind of videos. Timestamps will be available for your convenience. First of all, I'll explain briefly what shadow functions are, and then why it triggers unhealthily. Then I'll go into how to trigger it in a more helpful and healthy approach. Then I'll split off into developing introverted and extroverted functions separately, and I'll bring it all together and follow up with a quick conclusion. So first of all, using ENTP as an example here, because why not? There's the functions, here are the main functions, and here are the shadow functions. And yeah, it's quite clear when you put them like this, which are the shadow functions, which are the main ones. And basically, these are 1 to 4, these are 5 to 8 in the function stack. And you might be able to notice that basically they're the opposite in terms of introversion and extroverted between the two. Like if you draw a line between them, you'll get to see just they link all together quite nicely, like that. And this is basically how I'm going to be using it as an approach to mastering basically all the shadow functions. So yeah, it can come up, they can come about when you're stressed a lot of the time. So maybe a situation that's new, you don't know how to deal with it. And I think why this comes about is because you can't deal with it with any of your main 4 functions. So that's why you have to resort to 5 to 8 in your function stack to actually deal with it. You've tried with your dominant function, didn't solve the problem. You tried with your parent function, didn't solve the problem. So that's why you're getting down further and further your function stack. And the issue really with this is chances are you're not that familiar with your 5th to 8th functions at all. You've barely used them. You probably haven't developed them. And on the flip side, if you're just actively trying to figure out how to develop them, if you don't really know the correct techniques and methods, then there's a decent chance that you're actually going to induce stress on yourself by trying to develop them in a sort of unhealthy way. And yeah, that's not great. We don't want to be stressed if we don't have to. And yeah, so I think the importance of actually developing both the introverted and extroverted side of the functions. So if you think for an ENTP, their dominant function is extroverted intuition, and then the 5th function is introverted intuition. The importance of having both the introverted and extroverted version of the function is kind of, I like to think of it like you're punching. So if you imagine extroverted functions, they're just like loads of little jabs, and they're quite light. They don't necessarily do much damage behind them, but there's a lot of them. They're kind of coming up with loads of ideas or thoughts or emotions. They're just quite a lot. Like it's breadth over depth, really. Whereas the introverted functions, it's like one slow, powerful punch that's going to do a lot of damage, but you know, maybe it doesn't hit as quickly, and maybe people can dodge it. So if you don't have both the introverted and extroverted functions, then you're not going to be very effective, because you actually need a combination of both of them to do what you want to do in the best way possible. Okay, so starting off with the extroverted shadow functions, this is what you're going to want to look at first if you're an introvert in normal MBTI. So your introverted dominant function, you think it flips, and then you get the extroverted dominant function. And pretty much how this works is you kind of, there's almost this wonder of what am I missing out on, because you've probably picked one specific path, almost one way of sort of using your function, that you wonder what's the alternative. So with ally DOMs, this is going to look like you've got one specific plan for your future, and you kind of were wondering, what if actually I do this instead? What if I choose to do another thing? And that's the any sort of shadow function coming out. With introverted feeling, it's kind of like, oh, what if there's other emotions? What if I could sort of get that experience from the feeling of the other emotions than I already have? With the sort of sensory side of things, it's going to very much look like, actually what I've experienced is good, but maybe I should try different things out. So maybe you've gone to a restaurant at the same time, or your life, then maybe actually what if there's a restaurant that serves better food than this, that could potentially give a better sensory experience. So that's kind of something to consider. With thinking, it's probably more like you've researched this one topic in a lot of detail, and maybe you've almost learned everything there is to learn about it. There's like nothing left to find, and maybe just getting just other sort of knowledge out there, learning about different topics, could sort of be the extroverted thinking, like what do I not know about this sort of unknown side of thing is quite big with this. And I think the way to do it is just try and link with whatever introverted, your dominant introverted function is. So for an NI-DOM, maybe try and find things that you can link it together with whatever path you're going on. So maybe you want to be a doctor, and that's like your clear NI path. That's what you want to do. But maybe you also want to try like comedy or something. And you could potentially look into, instead of quitting your career as a doctor and becoming a comedian, you could maybe try, okay, what if I try making patients laugh sometimes or whatever, and then maybe that could sort of, you're still doing your NI major plan, but you're also getting to do this other sort of, you're getting to get a taste for this experience that you're missing out on, the sort of pathway you're not going down. And, you know, maybe this can really only go one of two ways, really. Either you figure out you like it so much that you actually, yeah, I do want to switch. I'm actually really good at being a comedian. I should switch my career path. This is what I want to do. Or you realise, actually, that's a sort of a passing thing. I don't actually realise it would be the way it was. I still want to be a doctor. Although there is kind of a third sort of combination between the two, where you're like, actually, this is super helpful. I can still make people laugh as a doctor, so you stick down that one path. With other things, kind of follows the same fundamental principle, but it's going to work slightly different because it's different functions. So just treating it, basically trying to incorporate whatever you do as your dominant function, just incorporate the extroverted side into it in a healthy manner. Don't like drastically change everything at once, just realise incremental steps is definitely the approach to go here. If you're an extroverted type, so you have an extroverted dominant function, then you're going to want to start with these because it's the opposite of your dominant function. Your nemesis will be introverted. So pretty much how this works is it's almost like wanting to stick to one thing. So with the restaurant example, it's going to be more like, actually, I've tried out all these different restaurants before, and there was this one that was pretty good, and maybe if I go back to there, and then we didn't try a new restaurant, if I went back to that old restaurant, maybe I'd be able to relive that sensory experience again, rather than constantly seeking out new sensory experiences. And yeah, I think with this one, I think it comes from just the need of what if I stuck to it? What if I didn't change my mind all the time? And I think the approach with this is just to acknowledge where there are overlaps already, because you will have explored a lot of things generally already, and basically just trying to focus on that. So maybe if you're extroverted, if you're looking at extroverted thinking as a function, so introverted thinking as a shadow function, then maybe as an extroverted thinking Dom, you've explored all the other possibilities of things to research and look into, and you found there's like a common theme almost of, actually, maybe you like looking into like geography, let's say, and you kind of think, actually, maybe there's something in specifically geography if I spent some time and actually learnt it properly, not just a surface level of knowledge that's going to get me by, but actually spent some time, sat down, studied this properly. And I think for the issue is, for people who are usually using extroverted thinking, is it can sort of be like, oh, do I entirely change my, like, what I learned about to just be this? This doesn't feel very good, because then I'm going to feel like I'm missing out on learning all the other stuff I want to learn about. But no, you kind of just have more focus than usual is pretty much the solution here. You don't need to completely drastically focus, this is the only thing you're ever going to learn about ever, but just acknowledging, actually, yeah, I'll spend a bit more time and looking into this just a bit more. With extroverted intuition DOMs, so this is MI as the shadow function, it's very much, they keep trying different things, new things, but they can't stick to any. Like, this is, of all the functions, I'd say this is the very much stick to one thing they can't do. And yeah, this is them just wanting to go down the path all the way, not like go down the path for a bit, come back, try a different path, go, like, they're known for not being able to stick to one thing, so that is why. And yeah, I think for this, just try and follow it through, really, just something through. So maybe you've got a bunch of different plans, why not try linking them all together, you know? I think the reason I mention this basically is because once you manage to improve your functions, then you are able to stop worrying so much about the what if side of things. That's what it's all about, your shadow functions, the what if. Also, when you go down your function stack lower, kind of the same principles apply, but a huge thing to consider is that you're looking at it as almost opposites. I know this is very like MI for me to say, but it's all connected together. There's links and patterns between them all. So you might have noticed how I've put an emphasis on learning your shadow functions to deal with the whole struggles with your shadow side. And I think the reason why this is like an effective approach to do is because you're actually going to stop having a lot of these worries once you manage to get a better grip on the using of the functions, because you're not really going to have it going in the back of your mind, what if you actually take the time and not ignore it, but actually look into it properly, and not from some chaotic, oh, I'm just going to change my entire life and do this thing, but actually from a sort of balanced, yeah, sure, let's give that a go in a healthy, safe manner, not jumping it in straight away. A thing to consider basically if you're basically in desperate need to get into your shadow functions, if this is something you really want to get into very quickly, I wouldn't recommend it. I think there are other alternatives to doing it, such as if you have a positive role model who can fit the shadow functions of the other side. So for example, if you're an INTJ and you're kind of drifting into an ENTP shadow a lot, then having someone in your life who's an ENTP can really help you out to basically stop you from having to feel the need to fill the role yourself, whilst also providing you with the sort of guidance of how to be a more mature version of an ENTP in your shadow function. So that is kind of another approach, and you can also kind of emulate the shadow functions to an extent with your normal functions. Obviously it's not going to be as effective. So for example, if you're trying to emulate extroverted feeling, and maybe you're an INTJ, you have this as a blind spot, extroverted feeling, then you can maybe combine extroverted thinking and introverted feeling to kind of maybe be able to psychologically figure out what emotion should I be feeling in this situation, and then use introverted feeling to actually feel the emotion, and then you've got the almost level of empathy, so you've logically worked out the emotion and then you've just let yourself feel what you should feel. And this is different to extroverted feelers who kind of just do it. Final thing, you might have noticed I've kind of talked a lot about dominant and nemesis a lot, so the first and fifth functions, and this might be just because I'm an INTJ and I'm NIDOM and I'm seeing this through all patterns, everything's connected together, but you can kind of follow the same approach for all of your other functions to get from like 6 to 8 in your shadow functions. So you kind of take the same concept with introverted and extroverted functions and just apply it down the line of 2, 3, 4. And I'd recommend following the aura of 1 to 4, because like with your dominant function, trying to get it into its shadow sort of version, it's going to be so much easier because you've got so much experience with your dominant function already. You don't have to worry about, like, for example, if you went straight from your extroverted, your fourth function straight to the eighth function, then that's going to be like, oh, this is just too big of a leap, and you're more likely to mess up because maybe you struggle with messing up with that function already as an inferior function. You might mess it up, you might struggle with it. You don't want to add that to the stress of like trying to get it flipped over to the other side of the introverted and extroverted side of things. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend sort of jumping ahead too much. Just sort of do it step by step, and that's gonna be the most sort of reliable approach. Yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you wanna, and yeah, huge thank you for the suggestion. Let me know if anyone's got any more suggestions, and cool. Comment if you want anything cleared up.